Hi again, Dr. Sheri here with part 3 of our series on evidence-based practices. Our focus today is on what's called antecedent-based interventions. Now, some of you heard those words and automatically said, wow, this sounds really difficult, but it really isn't very difficult. If you think about an antecedent is something that happens before something else. And so an antecedent-based intervention means that we're going to intervene before something happens. So what we're going to want to do first is we're going to want to collect some data on the ABCs. And those of you who know behavior know what the ABCs stand for. The ABCs stand for your antecedent, or what happens before the behavior, which is your B, the behavior, and then C, the consequence, what happens afterwards. So in antecedent-based interventions, we're really focusing on the A here, what happens before. So we'd want to collect some data. We'd want to see if we could maybe make a hypothesis as to what the function of that behavior is. Why is the child doing what they're doing? There is always a good reason for why someone is behaving the way they are. Then once we have determined what our hypothesis is, then we can start being Sherlock Holmes and determining what are the interventions that might work most effectively for that student. So the couple of the ones that I've found very useful and that my co-author, Carol Burmeister, has used over the years are, first of all, chunking. Chunking is a great way of breaking down assignments into smaller pieces. So instead of telling a student they need to read pages 86 to 120 and answer the next 65 questions, maybe we can say, okay, we're going to read these 5 pages and then you'll answer these questions and then we'll read the next. Of course, I'm being a little bit facetious, but sometimes it probably feels that way to a student who just has a hard time getting started. So instead of giving them the entire assignment at once, we can give little pieces. We can use file folders that are cut off in layers so that we only show a certain amount at one time. That's a great way to do chunking. Another great way to do chunking is with a tool called highlighter tape. Highlighter tape is excellent because it can be used and reused several times and you can see through it. So for instance, on a worksheet, you can use a piece of highlighter tape to highlight the most important parts of the worksheet, what the directions, for instance, or the key terms, or the main idea of a paragraph, or maybe the main idea is in yellow and then supporting details are in green. But the thing that's nice about this is because you can tear it off, you can use it in textbooks and novels that perhaps you wouldn't be able to use a highlighter with. Another thing that you can do is you can put it in the margin of something that the student is reading and maybe write a prompt on there, or write something that they need to keep in mind or something to think about, or have them write a question that they have on the highlighter tape. There are different widths and you can buy it online. We've heard that some people have found them in major stores, but it is definitely worth looking for. Another thing that you might want to incorporate is something that we talked about in yesterday's program, and that is a choice card. So maybe you have a student who needs to do a book report, but they don't have to do a written report, right? Because isn't it more about finding out what they learned from the book or what they found interesting? So in this case, what we could do is we could give them a choice. As I said yesterday, what makes this so powerful is that it is actually a visual support. So we don't want to just say, hey, make a choice. Are you going to do a Prezi or are you going to do PowerPoint? We really want to make it visual so that it becomes about what this is saying and then the choice that they're going to make. So great tool, excellent for students who might not be able to get started, or for students who maybe have some behavioral issues when they're told that they need to, do their homework. Maybe you could have math worksheet, reading log, and have them choose, but eventually they'll have to do the other one as well. Another thing that you might want to look into is something that we call SOAR. SOAR is a metacognitive strategy, which means that it invites students to think about their thinking. And in this case, the adult becomes the coach. So what SOAR stands for is this 5-step process, with the first step being S, which is specifying. So you're just going to specify what is the situation. So for instance, let's say that as a family, you're going to be going to a family member's wedding. So you would say, to specify that it's going to be at the wedding ceremony or in the reception or on the plane on the way to the wedding. And then if you're doing this before, if you're doing it as an antecedent-based intervention, what you do is you'd want to say, okay, now picture in your mind, what might you see people doing? What might be going on there? Here's what I think I would see. And then the analysis piece asks the student to say, okay, so based on what I think I will see, what needs to be my behavior? How do I need to behave in order to fit into this group? And then the second to the last one is respond. So respond in an appropriate way that goes along with your analysis. And then the last piece is reflect. And that question is, how did that work for you? How do you feel like it went when you responded in that way? So that's SOAR. So those are just a couple of great interventions that you can use, some great tools. If you're interested in learning more about some of these tools, make sure you look into Flip the Switch, Strengthen Effective Executive Function Skills. It's available at the publishers, aapc.com, or on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow.